Thank you so much for joining us today.
A pleasure, Nicole. Nice to see you, and I like your jumper.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I've got a nice Norwegian classic jumper on. It keeps me cozy at the moment. I'm in the UK at the moment, so it's keeping me warm. I think it went down to 4 or 5 degrees today.
Yes, crikey. Ideal for the North Sea at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Henry, you are the expert on our coastal exploration micro adventure that is coming each year, which is such a wonderful partnership to have. And I I know a lot about this incredible company that you've created. But for those who are watching or listening, I would love for them to know how you've gone from working with the UN to launching the Coastal Exploration Company, and what drew you to creating this beautiful adventure company.
Yes, very good. Well, look, thank you for the interest, Nicole, and really good to be talking to you tonight and looking forward to the collaboration again with the amazing business that you've started as well. So it's some great synergies. So I enjoy our time in trying to work things out together. And thank you for the interest. So I suppose we progress through life, we sort of discover more and more what we enjoy and what we're good at. And I started life as a Marine, drawn to the outdoors, drawn to travel, adventure, meeting new people, and that then transitioned into about 15 years of working for or working as a humanitarian. And but it's quite intense. In some ways, it's more intense than the Marines. You'd often be in the middle of nowhere. I spent time in Chechnya and Darfur and Somalia and places like that. And then I started a young family, and I just remember it got to a point during the famine in Somalia in about 2011. I thought, right, I love this work, but actually now it's time to do something different. And I remember sitting on the beach, so the east coast of Africa, looking out at the beautiful Indian Ocean, and just had a blank sheet of paper. And I said to myself, right, if I'm not going to be a humanitarian, what am I going to do? And I had this desire to run something myself, and I came up with it there over a couple of days. Um, Love for Norfolk, which is where I'm from, wanted to be with my family. I wanted adventure. I love the sea and I love boats, and it all started to ferment from that stage, from that point.
That's amazing. I love that. So it was just this idea that just were able to sort of package together whilst you were in a completely different location. And you were just able to mold those loves that you have, that, your location that you're from, and that love for the sea, and the boats and culture as well.
Yes, I think various people had said to me, because especially when I left the Marines, you need to work out what you need to earn, as in you need to be financially driven, so to
Mm.
work out what you're going to do. But it just that didn't resonate with me, and I sort of knew that I had to look deep within me, within my heart, and think, right, what do I love doing? And I'm a great believer if you can find something you love doing and you concentrate on that, then if you're lucky, things will naturally develop. So I took the chance of doing that,
Oh, I'm
following
glad
that.
that you took the chance. Yeah, no, I'm glad that you took the chance. And it's so I've got a family with a huge military background, and we're always so excited when anyone from the military grows and creates a company, because there's a whole other side to that, where it can be difficult for some who have sort of exited the military, for whatever
Mm.
reason, or retired or anything like that, and so to have these amazing companies that come out, of these amazing people is so nice. So it's really nice to know that transition as well.
Yes, yes, it helps having good people around you that have been through the process already and can advise.
Yeah.
Um, and it's also quite intimidating because you're so used to this particular environment. But I think you just got to
Yeah.
believe in yourself and look within. And if you jump, you're going to land somewhere. Something's
Yeah.
going to happen. You've got to take the first step. So, and then I think also we underestimate the skills you learn in the military as well. And people have this preconception the military was, about combat and killing, and that was the whole focus. But actually, it's like something like the Marines. It's about surviving in nature, whether you're
Yeah.
up in the mountains or the jungle or at sea or the most severe environment, Dartmoor, it's just wet and cold all the time. And actually, those skills are the ones that have really helped with the Coastal Exploration Company, taking people out into the wild edge of Norfolk.
That's it. And I would love for you to just explain what makes Coastal Exploration Company its unique self, because for me, I think it is a very unique company. It provides so much to both adults and families and businesses as well. I'd love for you to be able to explain that.
Yes, so I mean, different strands. The first one is tradition, the heritage. So we only use some of the original Norfolk fishing boats. And it was interesting when I started the company, I imagined getting a big yacht or a barge and using it to base people with adventures. And I realized after a while of searching research that actually they're totally unsuitable, these large craft for Norfolk. And I discovered the Norfolk crab boat, which is about the only um, original sort of Norfolk fishing boat that's still being looked after and used, because of course now they're all fiberglass. So original one built in the 1960s. And then I looked at that and I realized it was just perfect for the conditions, perfect for the salt marsh. And then I discovered the mussel flat, which was just perfect for the creeks. And then I discovered something called a whelk boat, and there's only two left. But again, brilliant for larger groups. And this went on, so just discovering all this heritage and history, maritime history that had almost been forgotten. The boats we found and discovered were pretty much rotting in the salt marsh, and all of this history would have disappeared. So that's the first thing. Secondly, my just love for adventure, pushing
Yeah.
ourselves, finding new routes, getting out to North Sea, testing ourselves. So that's a large part of it. And then slow living, so slowing down, which I think as the world gets faster and faster these days, it becomes more and more important. And even now, sort of 10 years after running the company, I'm still drawn to go out for even a short trip for 4 hours, have a swim, have a coffee, and you just feel invigorated afterwards. So that is still there. And then the last strand to the company is looking after the environment. So whether it's small things like picking up plastic and rubbish from the salt marsh, whether it's working with wildlife agencies, or whether it's making sure we use electric engines as much as possible rather than diesel, or
Yes,
sail cargo
yeah.
projects. So those are the four strands really that make up the Coastal Exploration Company.
It's amazing. There's so many strands, and that's such a feat as well for a company to be able to accomplish all of those strands. It's definitely a lot of credit to yourself. And you've said about the history of those boats. But I think also, like you were saying, about that sort of cultural heritage as well, of that Norfolk coastline. You are very much keeping that alive, and bringing it back to life, and bringing it to sort of modern day adventurers as well, I think.
Yes, I mean, we're all becoming almost homogenous or sort of international in what we do with a lot of
Yeah.
jobs. And there's this, I find, an amazing subsection that's sort of disappearing, but of all the fishermen families, and what they did to earn a living, and everything from how they built their boats, how they maintained them, just working them under sail, working with nature, um, all of that. So it's almost keeping that connection with all those generation of fishermen and sailors that have been working the coast for hundreds of years. Not just the fishermen, their families and the wives who'd make the gansies, the jumpers to support them, and make the nets and all the other industries surrounding that. For example, the Yarmouth skins that used to make a lot of the
Yeah.
equipment and clothing for the fishermen. So yes, I mean it's I think a lovely thing to keep alive, and it just gives a real depth to the experience. It wouldn't be the
It
same with a
is.
fiberglass boat where
No,
they've turned out 100
absolutely.
exactly the same.
No, exactly. No, it really wouldn't. And I think there's something really special about being able to have that in the UK as well. You haven't got to go to overseas to have this experience. It is on our doorstep, which I think is really beautiful in itself.
Yes. Yes, celebrating our richness of history, and we tend to not look at it, or it may be just in a museum and it's a static and it's not interactive. And these boats are still some of the safest boats, so it's not as if they're even aged, it's not as if they're not safe anymore. They're still some of the best craft to go out because they're oak and they're heavy, they ride the seas well. So there's many reasons for using them. Even the shape of the hull has been refined by generations and generations of fishermen. You know, one fishing boat would have finished, and then the son would then build another one. And he'd say, yes, we need it to be a foot longer because of the wavelength or whatever it may be, or we think it's faster if we the hull is this shape. And so it's preserving that. It's a oral history and understanding. You know, there's the boats were built by eye. There's no diagrams churned out by a central naval architect. It's all done
Yeah.
by hand by the local boat builders.
That's amazing. So you've got that whole creative craft element to it as well. You know, it's not just the historical value. It's really beautiful. And I know when you've said about how you love going out yourself whenever you can. I was very fortunate to be able to experience going on one of your boats, and you do just feel, it doesn't matter what the weather's like, you just feel so relaxed, and it's very freeing. It's really beautiful, and you do just switch off from whatever is going on in sort of your life, because you're just focusing on what's around you. And I think that calmness of, you've got the marshes, you've got the land, you've got the water as well. It's really beautiful.
Yes. Well, thank you, Nicole. I think Colin took you out, didn't he,
He did,
when you came up with
yeah.
us? Yes, and
He
I sometimes go on about the boats too much. The boats really is just the mechanism for getting us from the pontoon to these amazing and beautiful places that, unless you know the area, you can't get to. You can't walk there. You've got to
Yeah,
have a boat. The tides are incredibly difficult. So the boats are just a beautiful way to get there. And once you're there, with the tide flooding into the salt marsh and flooding out, we use it like a conveyor belt to take you to some of these amazing spots. You know, beaches that even people living on the coast haven't seen,
yeah.
or spots where you can swim, or whatever it may be, remote sandbanks, with all the wildlife as well. So it's another world.
I love that. It is very much another world. And I think for those who are listening and watching, I know that we've partnered for the micro day adventures that we're putting together. Would you be able to describe to people that adventure, in terms of us getting on that boat in the morning, and going off out onto those calm waters and onto land?
Yes, of course, Nicole. So it's what we're looking at doing together is a day experience, and I think it's one of the best trips that we do. So it's not going out to the North Sea, so it's not crossing Wells Bar, it's staying within the protected salt marsh. So we catch the morning tide, and we have to select these very carefully as the tide's just coming into Wells. So when you arrive, you'll think, well, where are we going? Because the creeks are empty, full of sand, and the water's out, but you'll slowly see it coming in. So as the water starts to come in, we take two or three of our smaller boats, and we use the energy of that incoming tide with the wind as well to sail or scull, which is the oar out the back. So we use the boats then to follow the water into the salt marsh, and we only have 2 hours to get in because after 2 hours we reach high tide, the salt marsh is flooded, and then the water goes out. So we have to maximize those first 2 hours to get halfway through the salt marsh, heading east towards a lovely village called Stiffkey. Once we get to the top of the tide, we normally stop, we have breakfast, and it's amazing how people will be focused on the action and the movement and the dynamic part of being in a boat,
Yeah,
which of course is the main focus. But once you've done that for a couple of hours, then to stop in the middle of the salt marsh where the water's completely still, you've got the curlews surrounding you, the oyster catchers, you've got your breakfast on and having a coffee, and then perhaps go and have a swim while the tide isn't racing. It's just a
yes,
really lovely,
absolutely.
it's a great counterbalance to the fast movement of undersail with the tide. And then we continue to Stiff Key, which is about another hour and a half, 2 hours. And this is about 5 miles to the east of Wells. We then drop the anchor, we have another cup of tea, and then by that time the sea would have ebbed out and all the creeks will be completely empty. And then you have the chance to enter a completely different world. So then you can walk through the creeks, you can forage for cockles, be some mussels. We can do some spear fishing, which is a traditional Norfolk way of catching fish. Although I would say, because there aren't so many, we like to go through the process rather than focus on catching them. So we don't really catch them, but it's the process
Yeah.
of looking for them, foraging for some samphire, sea purslane, and other edible plants, have a lovely lunch, and then have a walk off after that. So it's a real balance of sea movement, foraging, land as well. So I think it's a great magical mix.
It really is, and it's just, I only experienced being able to be on the boat, and I wanted to stay on there for nearly all day. So the fact that guests can experience this with us is just, it's so beautiful. And like you say, to be able to have both the land and the water is so beautiful. I think what would be lovely to hear as well, because you've had loads of guests who have been on this wonderful day trip and experience. Um, are there any wonderful things that they've said that sort of jump out, or that you might have experienced yourself with your team, that are either unexpected moments or experiences, whether that's through wildlife or anything that's happened where you've just been able to just really
Yes.
relax, and what makes the company itself?
I think it's perhaps not even words, it's just seeing people completely relax. You turn up, you've perhaps
Yeah.
been driving or got up early, or people are stressed from their jobs, and then you gradually see people unwind in their language. Often they'll perhaps go quiet as they take everything in. You see them sort of physically relax. Once you've had that swim and breakfast in this sort of breathtaking environment, you just see people come to life in a different way, back into themselves, having fun again, laughing and liven up. Um, but but often especially if it's sunny, it's just how dynamic the place is, the colours, the wildlife. It all comes together in this sort of very magical way, which is because we don't have there aren't large predators. It's not like a wildlife park. It's mainly it's mainly birds. We might see the odd seal, but just the way they move and they're about you, and the mix of them and the sounds is perhaps the inspiring part to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's those sounds that you can hear, isn't it? And I know recently it was the National Wetlands Day, I think,
Yeah.
not so long ago. And I think it's really good because people get to know about these different environments. And I think, like you're saying, that sort of sensory experience that you're getting with the sound, and even like the touch of feel, when you can forage and things like this. And it's something that for some of us we don't have access to, or we've lost that. It's something that we used to do
Yes.
a long time ago very naturally. So to bring that back into an experience with people is lovely. And also, if people are having that busy week, if they are working in a 9 to 5 office, to know that they've got a day in that week that you can do something like this, I think is really just rewarding, and does a lot for ourselves as well, doesn't it?
Yes, I think so. I think you're right, Nicole. And if we go back even sort of 30 years, everybody was perhaps a little bit more connected with the land, the sea, in some of the jobs, certainly in Norfolk and on the East Coast, and that's
Yeah.
gradually disappearing. And then also on top of that, then social media and devices and people being connected 24/7. And I strongly believe it's only going to get worse and faster if not managed correctly. And these
Yeah.
sorts of experiences and these things to do, I just think, becoming more and more important to offer this to be able to take people out and reset them.
Absolutely, that's it. It is, isn't it? It's about that reset, and resetting in the right way as well, and getting off of our screens as well as much as possible, which is a very, very
Yes.
much. I think it's quite a big thread actually with tiny gatherings, with your company, Coastal Exploration, and I think it is a thread of getting people away from the phones and technology when we can, and having that
Yes.
switch off.
Yes. Well, I noticed it, Nicole, because I started this to connect with nature. And then, of course, to make the business work, I had to have an Instagram account. And
Yeah.
then I've felt myself get sucked into it. So even now, I have to really be so disciplined and not spend too long. So I just try and post and support others and then get off and make sure that I'm still out there on a boat or in nature or swimming or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so important. It is really important. And also hopefully, people being able to come on these experiences as well, no matter what year they're coming on, and with the plan as well to have it hosted at different times of the year as well, people can experience those changing landscapes as well, those different seasons. I know that you've shared also about when it's, for example, January, and people may think
Yeah.
that that's actually a really cold time, but I'd love for you to just describe that, because that's always something that really stands out for me. Those January months, although we're starting off with a month that's more in later spring, but please do describe that January month, because I think it sounds absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so it's certainly not every day in January, but when you get the lovely highs coming in, you've got these crisp
Yeah.
blue, open, big skies. The salt marsh is just full of geese. So you've got this lovely thick winter light. You've got the geese everywhere. You've got less people about as well, so there aren't many boats on moorings. There aren't people walking, kayaking. So you almost have the whole place to yourself, and it's completely transformed. It's a completely different experience to the summer. And then, of course, you've got to dress well, and we'll stop and have hot soup. So there's ways to keep you warm as long as you're well prepared to enjoy it. And actually, you don't really notice the cold. You know, even if you go out in the middle of January and you've got a nice high and a bit of sunlight, it's still quite warm.
Yeah,
So beautiful, really nice. And
absolutely.
as you say, every month just brings out a different aspect of the salt marsh. I mean, another favourite time is July and sort of early August when you've got the sea lavender and the salt marsh is this
Oh,
blanket of
beautiful.
purple, which is just a short sort of 6 weeks, but again, completely different. And the water's incredibly warm, so the swimming through the creeks is good. So every season is beautiful in its own way.
That's so beautiful. I didn't even know that you could get sea lavender.
Yes, yeah, the whole marsh is transformed into a purple carpet. It's incredible. Unless you go
Wow.
out there, you don't realize, and of course you don't know until you go out into the salt marsh. You don't notice it so much on the coastal path and on the villages. You have to go into it.
That's it. And it's one of those things that there's these beautiful areas that nobody knows, unless you're fortunate enough to come on these experiences, or know yourself. You don't know that that actually is just there, it's just in reach. And it's another reason that it's so nice to be able to get people out to these. And your company is always flourishing and doing wonderful things, and supporting different companies and collaborations. um at the moment, you've got these beautiful four threads. Is there anything that's exciting that's coming up in the near future, or goal that you've got for the company at all?
Yes, there's a few things, Nicole, and I think you've got to keep it fresh, and not just for clients, but for yourself as well. Got to renew your own enthusiasm all the time. So we've just refurbished, well, finished it 2 years ago, a smack, so a much larger boat, a 42-foot sailing boat that's decked, which would have been used to go out and get the cockles. So it's a really beautiful 1920s boat, and I just can't believe fishermen would have built boats like this because it looks like it should be on the south coast of France. But it's a
Yeah.
Norfolk fishing boat, and that's how they built them, and they were built to work, and they were everything's practical about it. Nothing was designed just for the aesthetics in mind. It was designed as a solid, working tool. So it's what we're hoping to do with that boat because it's made for the wash is take people out into the wash, and that's even wilder. So North Norfolk is got a sense of wilderness about it, but I always think the Wash is like another 10 times wilder. It's bigger, it's larger. There's a lot less people. It's harder to get there, and you've got these enormous sandbanks open up at low tide, and you've got more wildlife. So what we're hoping to do is take people on this boat into the Wash, which will
Oh,
be a related but also a very different experience and a very powerful boat. So a very fast sail onto the sandbanks and then cook some cockles, show people how the cockles had been harvested, have a sail, and sort of come back on the evening tide. So, yeah, that's one thing. There's a few other things as well. I have to keep quiet about for the moment, but that's something
yeah.
we're trying to get off the ground.
That's beautiful. It's so nice. And for people who don't know sort of what makes a wash, is it because of the sort of expanse and area of that water that gives it that sort of category and title?
Yes, well, I think the wash really is just a name, but it's a large inlet and I suppose the end of an estuary because Norfolk is so shallow, um, even in North Norfolk, if you go out, miles, sometimes you can still stand up. And the Wash is an exaggerated version of that. So it's very sandy, it's very shallow. There's a couple of deep channels that never dry out. So it's constantly shifting and moving as well. And it's just the nature of that piece of geography on the East Coast.
That's so beautiful. And how did you learn about all of these different channels and, areas? And did you just very much have to just get out there and just sort of navigate and explore and
Yes, well, I think that's one of the strands of the company is adventure and exploration. And it's not about just following that set route and taking people out every time we go out as an adventure because it's always different because of weather, tides. So if you don't want to explore and try different things, um, it's not right. So I always have this fascination going further. What's over there? What's down this channel? And it's only by going down the channels, or you have to walk them at low tide so you get a good idea and make sure there's nothing dangerous, an old post or something. So you do that first, and then you sail them. And it just opens up so many sort of new beautiful places, sand dunes, little islands, creeks with a little bit of deeper water so the boat will sit nicely at low tide. All these things you discover, and
that's
that's
so
part of the
nice.
fun of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. It is. It's part of the fun of it, for your company, and then to be able to be rewarded and seeing these guests really sort of have that magic over them of seeing everything that they see and experiencing it all. And it's a bit like a journey as well, in a sense, um, that we don't normally get to have, and certainly we don't get on land, especially when we're busy. So it's really beautiful.
Yes. Thank you. Well, yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this next adventure.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. And I cannot wait to welcome guests onto our micro adventures.
A pleasure. We'll look forward to it, Nicole. Let's hope it's the first of many.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you, Henry.
Pleasure. Thanks, Nicole.